Hey everyone, we have a fantastic guest by the name of Nicole Christina. She has an amazing podcast called Zestful Aging. And since I'm one of those zestful agers, this is a really important topic for me. And I know a lot of you are zestful agers too. So tune in. She's a psychotherapist for about 30 years now, and she specializes in eating disorders and food issues. She writes mostly about women, culture, food, and mental health. She's got a great blog called 60 and Me at 60andme.com. That's 60 spelled out SIXTY me.com. And she's also a new podcaster on the network with a podcast that already was in existence. And she covers, a wide array of topics. And you know what? Aging gives you a lot more to talk about. And this show, we take our windy road, but it's really fantastic. And I don't hardly take notes during shows anymore. And I wrote some zingers down that you're going to love. So thank you for tuning in.
I wanna try and take in all the highs, embrace them for more than a moment's time. I want you, please don't move when I push you away. I know I contradict myself some days, but will you ride the lows with me?
Welcome to Mental Health News Radio. I am your host, Kristin Sunanta Walker. Our goal is to help discussions about mental health be a regular part of your daily life, no different than discussions about physical health. Mental illness can be a topic of discussion under the umbrella of mental health, along with so many other topics. This show is the original program on mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com. Our network of shows are played in over 180 countries and cover more topics under that umbrella than you can possibly imagine. We were talking about mental health long before it became cool and popular to talk about, and thank goodness. It has become so popular. We have incredible guests, advocates, patients, experts, people. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy our intro music, a song named Lows, written by Aubrey Toon. You can find her music at www.aubreytoone.com.
That night when I started praying, I cried. Will you ride the lows with me? Will you ride the lows with me? When I'm down, my vision gets blurry.
Nicole, I am so glad that you are not only on the network, but that you're also just doing a podcast about, mental health and aging. That's fantastic. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kristin. I am more than delighted to be here with all of my peeps.
Yes, exactly.
My mental health peeps, my people. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love it that, what I've noticed is we went back and we sort of did a run through of all the shows on the network, and there are over 90 now, and maybe a dozen or so have not recorded a show since the beginning of COVID.
Oh.
And because they're stressed out, and I'm not pushing anybody because I get it. I get it.
Oh, goodness.
But I'm really happy that there are people that are able to, keep pumping out shows during this time, because boy, people sure need it.
Well, pumping out the shows helps my mental health.
Exactly.
So that's the little secret. It's a give and a take. I feel so inspired and so energized by talking to my guests. I actually get giddy, and I have to sort of, my brother made a funny comment. He said, sometimes you sound just like a perfect radio voice, but then I can hear you start ratcheting it up, and the octaves are getting really high and screechy. He goes, you have to work on that.
Oh, that's funny.
I get very excited, and I'm always having pinch me moments. I've really been so fortunate to have people on that I've admired since since college. And there's something to be, like I'm like talking to this person, I can ask them whatever I want.
Yes.
I am a kid in a candy store. It
It's
is
so great for that. I know I got to give a shout out. So I have some exciting news. You are the first guest that I'm saying this publicly, but we are going to start broadcasting at my show, which includes, all the podcasters that want to be on my show that come on. And then eventually we'll start having some of the other shows on the network come on, but we're going to be on Radio Free Entertainment Network, which broadcasts all over and also a big presence in Cleveland, Ohio. And that's a terrestrial radio station. So I'm really, I'm super excited about that.
Congratulations. It's so lovely when people validate, what you believe and think about. Like, I'm producing really good content, and then somebody else says, yeah, you are, and we want to bring you in. It feels great.
Yeah, they were looking for, they'd gone to National Council for Behavioral Health and many other places saying, hey, we need really good mental health content. And of course we come up, in all the search engines. So it's fantastic that our shows are going to get aired there. I got to, of course, give a shout out to Christovis Dominic, who is the station manager, and I guess you call it WMVU, Radio Free Akron. So I'm really, any place, I told him, any place that we've got so much content. Mm-hmm. And another place for listeners to find us is fantastic. And you're talking about a subject that I have been wanting to have I've done shows about this, but I haven't had a podcast dedicated to this. And your show is called Zestful Aging. And, we haven't had a show just dedicated to this. And hello, we are living longer. We are longer. And so our mental health is something that, you need to look at in different ways. And you do look at it in different ways as as you get older. So this is awesome.
And the idea is, how can we be intentional about maintaining and promoting mental health as we age? Because it's tricky in that we don't want to be Pollyannish about like, hey, aging's great, we're so wise, and that might be true, but there's also other things. I've been nursing my plantar fasciitis all day. I've been rolling this dumb golf ball under my foot because I have an injury now that I've never had. I'm a pretty avid tennis player, and I'm hobbling around like I don't know what, and that's real. But the idea then is, what are the new positives? What are the new freedoms? What are the new opportunities? And where do we put our attention? So it's not to say it's all like aging positive. We do that, but we also want to talk about the losses and talk about the grief, because if you've lived that long, life has been lifey in some way or another.
Life has been lifey. I like that.
So I think it's like, how do we walk this edge, and how do we do it in a way that's intentional and thoughtful so that we can manage our own outcomes?
That I'm so glad that you mentioned it must be kismet or something, because I am dealing for the first time ever in my life, plantar fasciitis.
Oh,
and I mean, I am really active in my life where, there have been times where I have not been so active, but I am, doing 3.5 mile hikes every day, and then an hour of yoga. And then now I have one of those Mobo trikes, and I mean, and I go and I do all this stuff. And then I just walked over to see my neighbor, and I felt like I was 117.
Oh, yeah. You're walking on glass?
Yes. It's horrible.
Bloody stumps. It is so horrible. And I feel like it's should it hurt this much? I mean, I don't have a broken bone. What's going on? I have an x-ray that says, oh no, bone spurs, looks great. I'm like, I literally almost am crying when I get out of bed.
Oh,
and, yeah. And it's really tough, and it's really common. And people all say the exact same thing. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like childbirth on your legs, on your feet. Yeah.
Between 40 and 60 years old is the time frame for when most people, get it at other times, but that is when most people get it. And I'm 50, so I'm right in the middle there. And I'm
right
like,
there.
This is horrible.
It's
like
horrible.
And what seems to help one day maybe doesn't help. That I cannot figure out the rhyme and the rhythm of this thing. And it is something that happens as we get older. And the thing about these kind of things that happen as we get older is that it can mess with our zest for life, our mental health, because you're like, is this like, am I going to walk like this now until I'm not here anymore? Like, what is this?
It's interesting you say that, because it's given me a real appreciation for like professional athletes that are out with an injury, and it's their whole identity. I mean, I have many identities, one of which is a tennis player and a dog walker, but they're not my main. I mean, I love them both, but I've got other stuff going on. And I think if you are trained all your life to become a professional athlete, and then you're sidelined and you may not know whether you can come back, I would say that's the shortcut to a deep depression.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And finally, more athletes and people in the celebrity culture, whether it be that they're an athlete or they're an entertainer or whatever, are talking more about their mental health, but there's still this thing. Okay. So there's still this thing of, okay, well, I will pick one thing that I'm going to out myself and be real about, and that's mental health. But you're not going to get me to also talk about aging. I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but I'm saying in our culture, it's like, oh boy, I'm already putting myself out there about this one topic. I am not touching the age thing,
It's interesting. I mean, some celebrities have been more embracing of it, like Helen Mirren has been. Some of her things are just beautiful, and she's just really out there. There are some celebrities that are like, look, I cannot change this, so I'm going to talk about it, laugh about it, and and help others feel more
okay
accepting
about it.
Yeah, it's got to happen. I mean, Ashton Applewhite, she's a big anti-ageist person. She did a marvelous TED Talk, but she has this quote that I love. She says, that's a discrimination against your future self. Being ageist is about, we're all ending up there. So you can make fun of like so-called little old ladies, but we're all going to end up there. So that makes absolutely no sense.
I know. I did a show between in his mid 70s year old man, Dr. Paul Meyer, who is just the loveliest human being. We have different belief systems about many things, and that's okay. I mean, hello, it's called being human and having your own opinion. But I had him on a show, and then this young man, probably in his late 30s, Dr. Antipas Harris. And we talked about racism, and we talked about, it was Antipas Harris is Black and Paul is white, and they have very different audiences. And I posted out a thing, a little like 30-second audio clip from that show. And I had some young people really go after Dr. Meyer. Well, this old guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
Wow.
And I was like, man, think about what you just said. It's like, you're going to be that one day. And so can we, like tamp that? I mean, I guess that's historically, that's what happens,
in our culture, not in other cultures.
This is true. Yeah, that's true. It's not, I know I was saying this with someone near and dear to me that was talking about, I feel really bad that I live with my parents, and I had a time where I lived with my parents as an adult too. It was after my father died. And I said, what's funny when we think about constructs, like we put ourselves in these constructs where if you're this age, there are certain things you can't do or shouldn't be doing. And I said, here's one of those constructs, because in an Asian population, you would be living with your parents. And then when you got married, she'd be living with your parents too.
That's right. Different expectations, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's really an American thing. You know, I know there are other countries too, but that we have this thing about
all
aging.
about independence
Yeah.
and youth and yep, all of that. That's right. We're a little bit behind, I'm sad to say. When I talk to my guests from the UK and Australia, South Africa, New Zealand, they're a bit more evolved than we are in terms of bringing this to the conversation and saying, yes, we're going to talk about menopause. We're going to talk about what it feels like to not feel vital anymore or be invisible and all of this stuff. They are really, they're just a little bit ahead of us. And
hopefully we can evolve.
Yes, I think we're moving that direction.
Let's talk about that piece of the invisible, because I also had someone that I love dearly who's in her 60s say, well, it just stinks because you just become invisible. And I understand, I do. I have felt that already in my late 40s, early 50s.
Sure.
However, who I was invisible to, I didn't really care. So how much is that what you tell yourself is going to happen to you because you've been told that by society, and so that's all you see? And how much of that is legit, this really happens all the time?
It depends. You know what I think about this, and you can tell me your experience, but if you've spent a lot of your life being kind of the value of physical attraction, and people say to you, oh, that's something that you're kind of known for, then losing that really hurts. If you're the kind of person who's done a lot of different things and don't place such a heavy emphasis on what you look like, it doesn't hurt so much. And I give this example when I do presentations. I have a friend who, I don't know if you remember, Isabella Rossellini.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Well,
I love her.
Okay. Well, she basically looks just like this friend of mine, or my friend looks like her, really just classic beauty. And my friend got a lot of attention. I mean, she's very bright and she has a lot of talents, but she got a lot of attention. She got a lot of attention for looking this way. And she told me the story that she was in the grocery store not long ago, and this gentleman was kind of looking and kind of making eye contact and kind of smiling, and she thought, wow, this feels pretty good. It hasn't happened for a while. And she was really kind of flattered. And then she realized he was looking at the woman behind her.
Oh.
And ouch.
Oh.
And so that was like, wow. And for me, as sort of a regular looking person who does a lot of different things, I have dirt under my fingernails because I'm in the garden, hopefully I haven't stepped in any dog poo because, it's a thrown together look that works for me. But I have not spent my life has not been sort of about, being unusually attractive. So I don't have as much to lose when I don't get that kind of attention because I'm not really used to it. That's not what my thing is. But if you have someone who's really learned that that's what they bring to the table, that is a crushing loss. And you'll see women who are really trying to maintain that sort of youthful look. And it just seems so sad. It's like, look, we know that that's not your real hair color. And that's a lot of makeup. That's high, that's a lot of work. And, wearing clothes that might be, not sort of suited for them. It doesn't play well. And I think it's sad to say, I can't accept who I am right now. I have to feel like I have to be something other than who I am. There's a lot to that.
There is. It's a big,
that's a big one.
It is. It's a big one. And I never, I'm sure I have done it, and, in more selfish or my own insecurities or whatever times, really judged that as, well, that person's superficial. And I don't do that anymore, but it's so nice to have things. And what I'm loving about aging for me is there's just stuff that doesn't take up rent in my head anymore, that I'm so glad that it's gone. And I don't notice, when I go out, I used to, believe me, with this network and my own podcast and, everything, I used to, like, that walked out 10 feet ahead of me, because I put so much value in that is my identity. And it's a good thing to have as part of your identity. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking it. It's just that now I really live from the space of, I don't need to tell everybody what I do and what I've created and whatever, because I feel real confident and whatever. And that's not really, I needed to do that for a while. And now I don't at all anymore. And now I just show up as me. And I might be wearing a dirty shirt, like you said, have poo, which is usually horse or donkey poo. And walking into a store where I'm picking up tractor feed or tractor horse feed or whatever. And I just show up as me. And I'll tell you what, people do not, if I don't want to be noticed, I can certainly go in and out and be done. But the absence of caring about
that's the freedom. That is right. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. And that a smile and a warm personality is a big, juicy hug that is better than any gorgeous Western society's definition of gorgeous face. It really is. Because listen, there are some people that look fabulous and they're so not very nice on the outside that,
and if they're dieting all the time, and my specialty is eating disorders, they're pretty grouchy because they're hungry.
Because they're angry. They're not just hungry, they're angry.
That's right.
Yeah, it's just nice to have, like, the absence of those things and to just really focus on how can you help maybe someone feel, especially right now. I know you'll know this because I can tell you're this kind of person too, where our frontline workers, and I'm talking about wait staff, I'm talking about pharmacy staff, I'm talking about clerks at Walmart or wherever you're going. Those are also frontline staff. They're getting way beat up because of what's going on right now. And so when you are extraordinarily and overly kind and say, thank you for working during this time, or thank you so much. Oh my God, you are the most beautiful person that person has ever seen.
You're really hitting my you're checking all my boxes here, Kristin, because I think about, who do I want to have on the show? And I keep coming back to people who do serious gratitude practice, appreciation, thank you project, on and on. And I so agree with you. And my son will say to me, Mom, you're so nice. And I think, well, what's the choice? Why not be nice?
Right.
Because it just creates this, it creates a feedback loop in my life. And I feel like that's not that much to ask. I'm not nice every single second, but I feel like the toll booth person, what a job that must be.
Right.
That's a tough job. And I think that the pharmacy, just as you said, I just got a flu shot and the pharmacist did it and he just did a fantastic job. And it doesn't hurt me. It doesn't cost me. You're very good at this. Thank you for your expertise. I'm scared of shots, and that really, and what I learned from one of my guests, Nancy Coe, she went into the research and she said, that is contagious.
Yes.
Just like grumpiness is contagious, you are actually spreading a positivity. And I don't know if it's metaphysical. I don't know,
Right.
I'm not familiar with all the research, but when you are with kind people, you are more likely to be kind. And I think that has just been, one of the the loudest messages in terms of how do you improve your mental health. Let me give you a quick and easy way. When your mail carrier comes, say, thank you or appreciate it,
Yeah.
or it's going to rain, or, that looks heavy, or blah, blah, blah. That's a shortcut to mental wellness, and especially important as we're aging, and we have to negotiate the loss. So you mentioned the death of your father. People we love are
Yeah.
dying. We
Yep.
can't pretend otherwise. People we love are getting scary diagnoses. Even on when we're not having a pandemic, aging is difficult.
Yep.
And life can be brutal. And so that's one of my main things is if you can appreciate what is there. There's plenty to be upset about, but if you can appreciate what's there, it's kind of like a little secret to happiness.
It really is. It's so, if you want, we hear about The Secret, and that was a big deal, that book and the principles around it, and people believe in that or they don't, and whatever. It has some good nuggets in it. And it is that what you just said, that the more you practice something, first of all, you're creating new neural pathways towards positivity. And we
Amen.
are wired from our Cro-Magnon days for survival, and survival is about fear, because fear kept you alive because you were running away from a dinosaur. Okay.
Right.
We don't need that anymore. We don't. We can get away from that, but it's hardwired. Like what I'm saying is, give yourself a break, because listeners, give ourselves a break, because our bodies push us to being negative.
Oh, our brain is definitely neurologically wired. And there's some really interesting, I love Rick Hansen. I don't know if you're familiar with his work. Yeah, he talks about the Teflon for the good. And what does he say? The Velcro for the bad.
I love that.
That our brain is tilted towards negativity because if you're smelling the roses, that's not a survival skill. You got to be vigilant and be careful you don't get chomped. And, our wiring is not that updated.
I love that. Teflon for good, Velcro, that's for bad. That is so true. So give yourself such a pat on the back for doing, just a few out of the norm for you kind things a day. I've had 2 people this week say, "You're so kind." And I laugh because I'm like, me? Because that was not, yes, I've always, more bent that way, even though there are plenty of people that would be like, "No, she didn't, she a liar." But I am more that way now. And it's a reflection of how much kinder I have had to learn how to be towards myself. And let me tell you, the Olympiad exercises that I have had to do to become a much kinder person. You think you got to work out doing a triathlon, freaking try kindness as a way to live. And that kindness people associate it with like being a doormat. And let me tell you, my boundaries are better than they have ever been. And I'm also kinder than I've ever been.
Yep. I know. And that's exactly right. It's not, I don't know, you can bleep this out, but my friend always says, "You're assertive without the bitch." And I think that's a compliment, when I talk to people, it's like, I'm not trying to be nasty but I'm also not going to be walked on. And, I say, "No, thank you."
Yeah.
That's kind of one of my things is, "No, thank you." Yeah.
That's so funny. Yes, I say no, but there's a thank you on it. There's my effort, sometimes Herculean at kindness, because sometimes when someone's really pushing it, no, adding the thank you, the comma, "no thank you" at the end of the no is like, wow, that took some effort.
Oh, especially these days. And I've got a long ways to go in terms of discussing political stuff. I'm not patient and I'm not that kind, frankly. And the expletives are flying. So, I got plenty of work to do.
Oh yeah. I mean, obviously, yeah, I will be working on this for the rest of my life. It is like any kind of a workout. Like you got to keep doing it and build those muscles.
That's
and
right.
Cause it's so easy to flip back into it. It's nice though to have enough space. I think the more that we push things out of what we have always carried around, like for me right now, social media is a big break because I just don't want to, all the political stuff, like you said, all the stuff that's flying around and the lack of kindness and how easy it is to just lash out. I mean, I don't like waking up in the morning and getting some email from someone that took a show I did on YouTube or wherever and just were triggered and took it in a direction that was never intended to go, and then leave this just, if I didn't have self-esteem, I would have had to call a therapist.
Yeah.
Just like,
scathing.
what?
And it's so easy to do. It's anonymous. And I had someone write a comment on, mostly I have good scores on iTunes, but they said, something like, well, she has really good topics, but her voice is so slow and something I can barely listen. And I thought, oh, wow, ouch. But then I followed her and I found that she was leaving those comments everywhere.
Yeah.
And so you kind of try to take it with a grain of salt, but
it's still hard.
It makes you think like, am I really that slow and offensive?
I know. I actually, this is hilarious because I just did this on one. Somebody left a comment on a show I did and they loved the show, but they hated my music. And just went on and on about this screeching and this ruined the whole show for them. I mean, it was detailed. Wow. And I was in one of those moods. I have a rule that I do not respond, chop my fingers off, but I was in a mood and I couldn't help it. And I wrote, how hard is it to press fast forward? It actually would take you less time to press fast forward than to actually take the time out of your day to write a crappy comment on a mental health show. And then I said, and the song is about bullying, and it was written by a young woman who experienced tremendous bullying. If you actually listen to the words, it's so, when someone's in that mode, they don't care what you say. And I know better. So somebody else chimed in, bad PR, mental health news radio, shame on you for that comment. Blah, blah. And I was like, you know what? I'm just deleting the whole thing because this goes down a rabbit hole to hell and I don't want to
too much energy. Yeah,
exactly. That's the thing with aging is maybe, and you correct me if I'm wrong about this, but maybe it's you start to realize that your time on this earth is getting shorter. There's more time maybe not left than there is left. And so and your body is doing what it does because that's what happens, you age. And so you don't want to waste a lot of your energy on things that in your youth, you would be like, I'm going to burn my bra and I'm going to do this and I'm going to blah, blah, blah. And as you get older, I feel like my energy is important and I don't feel like expending it over there.
Well, you're exactly right. I call it radical prioritizing. And
I'm writing that down too. If you hear me scribbling, listeners, it's because I'm writing things down. Radical prioritizing.
You got to. I mean, it's like I can't do everything. So am I going to do this or am I going to do this? And where's my joy at? Because there's things I know. I mean, at 59 years old, I kind of know what energizes me, what makes me tick, what makes me happy. Yes, I want to try new things, but I also don't want to waste time on stuff that just isn't feeding me or fueling me or takes more energy than it's worth. So I know where those places are. I know where I get filled up and I want more of that.
100%. So what made you, because, I said in your intro that you're a psychotherapist and, what you specialize in and, you're writing, I won't say your blog because you'll say that at the end, but what got you interested in doing podcasting and then also making it about, zestful aging?
Well, it was kind of a parallel process. I mean, come to find out, as I'm aging, my clients are aging too. I mean,
True, yes.
a weird thing. I see a lot of university students. I'm about a mile and a half from Syracuse University, so I always joke there's a tunnel from the counseling center, and they just like roll down the tunnel into my office because I do specialize in eating disorders, and there's a great need in every
Absolutely.
university. So that's that. But I think a lot of it, as it is for many of us, is a parallel process. I've been a psychotherapist for 30 years, and I love it. I'm proud of the work I've done. I hope I've helped people. But 30 years, you sort of start feeling like you're starting to get it. I'm like, I know. I think I feel pretty secure in what I'm doing. I feel like, by and large, I feel good about my work. I feel competent, and it felt like I'm at this age now where, as you said, there's more time behind me than in front of me. What do I need to do to something new, something challenging, something a little scary? And at that time, I was doing and it's still out there. It's an online program on mindful eating because of the eating connection. And my tech assistant said, I think you'd love podcasting and one day you should think about it. Well, because of my disposition, one day was the next day, and I grabbed my laptop and I ran over to one of my friends. We did a retreat together on fly fishing and meditation and mindfulness. Yeah. Cool, right?
Yeah.
And so she's a guide in New York State, and she's a graphic artist. And I was like, oh my gosh, Vicky's going to be my first guest. So it went better than I could have imagined. And I almost got, well, I probably did, tear up during the interview. I was sitting in her porch room, and I just had my little, laptop with GarageBand. I didn't know what I was doing. She talked about why it was important for her to volunteer for women who were recovering from breast cancer, teaching them how to fly fish because fish live in beautiful places, and the serenity and just the sheer bliss of being in this stream and doing this beautiful art form. And I was like, oh my gosh, Vicky, I was hooked. It was like I fell in love. I was like, I basically want to do this all the time. And then my editor said, you cannot be recording 3 interviews a week if you're only dropping 1. You have got to slow down. And I'm like, it's like crack. I can't stay away. I love it so much. So this summer I've been a lot better at trying to time and be a little bit more chilled out in getting my guests. But it just became a challenge for me. And my clients were saying, hey, what do I do? My kid's launching. My parents are failing. I'm retiring. And I thought, there's so much to say about this, so much to understand, and so much to debunk about it. And I threw myself into the research. I'm kind of intense, if you haven't already gleaned that, gathered that. And so I just learned everything I could learn about aging and mental health. I did a lot of research. I interviewed a ton of people. I was very, very fortunate because maybe, I don't know, I'm so intense, but people agreed to be on that are like really experts in their field. And so I just was like this student, and I just couldn't get enough. And I still, it's just been such a wonderful addition to my life. It's added such richness, and I still have a full-time private practice. And the podcast is grown in leaps and bounds. We're in 92 countries.
That's so amazing. You got to update your website because it says 80. You're going to have to say 90 plus.
92. Yeah, and I just take that the international kind of view, I think personally, is very important. My dad was a first generation immigrant, and just sort of been raised in a kind of looking at the world rather than
Yeah.
just New York State. And, you know, I want to know what other people are thinking about aging in different cultures. And so diversity is really important to me, and hearing other voices, you know, outside of my little bubble in Syracuse, New York, is just so important.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah.
That's the greatest part, is that, you know, people will say, well, your national show. And I'll say, well, yeah, it is national, but it is internet radio. So we got a lot of people, we got countries that don't have viable internet that are listening to the show.
You know, I'm embarrassed. Sometimes I'll see the code and like North Macedonia. I'm like, oh, is that a country? You know, like
Right.
here are my ugly American, you know, ignorance. Like, let me look that up. I don't even know where that is. Is that a country? You know, like I try to be educated, but you know, my geography is appalling. So
Well, it goes, well, yeah, that's okay. I used to know every single, you know, that was part of my Montessori school education, but
yes.
it's gone. You don't keep like anything. I don't remember. And some countries don't, you know, aren't there anymore. So I am that age, or they changed their name.
They changed their name. That's right.
Yes. Me bad with geography. It's not that they aren't there anymore, because there are no countries that we're aware of that have actually, like Atlantis, fallen to the bottom of the sea.
Right.
It's just that they have changed their name.
Right. That's right. Right. Exactly. And changed their flag.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. That's the funny thing too, is you do start to care less about a lot of stuff that used to really fill up your brain, and that is really nice. It's nice to, you know how people used to look at retirement, you know, for a while that was the goal, like you work at the same place forever.
And but that's when we were dying at 67.
Exactly. And now, like, I don't even say retirement, because I will, as long as I, you know, able, I mean, I don't care if I'm laying on a bed and I can't move my arms and my legs. Somebody can stick a mic in front of my face, and we got it going on.
Oh, so I am right there with you. It would be a tremendous loss. I mean,
absolutely.
I see the future as being sort of maybe going down to half-time clinically, but bringing the podcast and doing more with it, and, you know, getting out in the world. And I've already, I didn't know if you know this about me, but I've had several occasions to teach about interviewing, podcast interviewing, because
I remember you telling me about
my
that.
30-year. So like I've been able to get out there with people who I would never have come across. These are like pretty youngsters. They may be starting up in podcasting, and teaching them about, you know, it's not just chatting. It's like it's a skill, it's an art, and it takes practice.
It really does. And I always tell people, you know, I'll have people that'll say, well, I'm not as good as you are, whatever their definition of good is. I'm like, if I am on that list of who you think is good, then you need to listen to more podcasts. Sometimes I think I'm the Florence Foster Jennings of podcasting, but it's okay to say that, because I'm not putting myself down. I don't care. I do this because I love it. And I find people endlessly interesting, and you will get better the more you do it. It's not something that you can not do or watch someone else do. It's experiential. You have to experience this process of doing interviews, and boy, does it help build your listening skills too.
I think there are certain things that I think you, as a mature adult and someone who knows a lot about mental health and all that, already know that you almost probably don't know, you know, but people who are coming up, like listening, really important. That sounds simple and obvious, but I think most of us, myself included, are like kind of waiting to talk. That's not the same as listening, you know? And so how do you find themes? How do you follow the breadcrumbs? If you have a list of questions you want to ask, but then your guest gets tearful and is talking about something really important. You don't say, could you hold that? Because I want to ask you, when you moved to blah, blah, what was that like? I mean, you have to, it's a dance, right?
Yes.
And so there are some things that you already do because just of who you are. Some of those things are not as evident to people who don't have that experience and who live, frankly, live in maybe a different generation or, with different norms.
I actually, and he's going to laugh. He'll know who I'm talking about. A listener of my shows, because we just had this conversation about how much better of a listener and also, well, he's always been a good listener, but how much better of a conversationalist he's become from doing his own podcast.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
Like you want to know a party trick that'll help you win friends and influence people.
Yeah.
Do a podcast and learn how to really be because I can talk to anyone about so many topics that are so off the wall. Like I can mix it up and I'm fully confident you could plunk me at almost, a KKK party. I would turn it into a show for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I would not really want to sit around and have a conversation. But you know what I'm saying? Like
yes.
You can plunk yourself kind of at any dinner party.
You're very versatile.
Yes, thank you. That is the word I was searching for. Thank you. You being a great host knew that.
But you know what's really funny? I totally get what you're saying, but I've noticed that now when I go to parties, I kind of become an interviewer. I go too far. So I'm like, I was just at this party and there's a woman who's an art professor. She's actually a tennis friend of mine. And I wanted to know about her art. And I'm like asking these questions. Well, what does that mean? Well, what does this mean? Well, what's the chemistry? Well, what's that? And like, cause I didn't know anything about it. And then I realized I'm basically interviewing this woman and that,
that can happen. Yes. Yes. I've definitely,
that's the dark side.
Yeah. I've had two things. I listen and observe more, because I want to hear what's, that's the thing you want to, when you really dig this and you get confident and comfortable doing it, then in order to do it well, you have to listen to what someone's saying because number one, it's the polite thing to do. And number two, as a host, it's freestyling a show. You're going to glean good directions to take with that show.
Exactly. That's exactly what I say. I've been trying to write a book about it. I've been a little distracted, but that's exactly right. It's like, you don't know where you can have your list of questions, but really what you want to be doing is listening and saying, what's the next, like, where do we go from here? What's the next little step? What's the next little step? Yes. You're following. And if you're not listening, you cannot follow. And I sort of did this like total transparency on a couple of my podcasts, and I've done almost 190 now. So it's only a very small portion. Like I found myself scrolling Facebook and I thought, oh, this cannot be good. And I think it was because there were two people, they were so polished and their stuff was so rehearsed because they were on TV and stuff like that. It's like, oh my gosh, this is no spontaneity. Yeah. And I really worked hard to say, to crack that. And I consider myself pretty good at no way. Could not get through, and it was boring. Yeah. So I was like, they're talking and they're giving their canned responses, and there was nothing that I could do to make it more fresh or more nuanced. I was like, oh, this is a bad sign.
So because I've been on the air forever in terms of podcast land. It's been 8 years, so it's so funny because the people that God love them, have listened to me since the beginning. Some I've had emails and direct messages and stuff saying, I didn't care about the topic, but I listened anyway because I love those moments when I can tell you are bored as hell. And
and I could hear you clicking. And listen, listeners, sometimes I'm clicking because I'm looking up something about the guest. So legit, sometimes it's about that. But other times, yeah, they're like, we can hear you. We want to hear if you're clicking, or we want to hear how you're going to say something completely off the wall to try to, inject the show with something
hysterical.
To take that person, how you're doing the dance. You're like, oh my gosh, what can I say that will completely change course for that person? Because it so throws them off balance that now they're behaving like themselves.
I thought it's so funny how conversation is such a Rorschach, because when you said clicking, I thought she's knitting during
No.
That's what I'd be doing.
I was clicking on your page.
I see.
Joe knows to edit those out. So
I see. That's so funny. Yeah.
It's an interesting, you're right. It's an interesting thing, and it takes skill, and when you do as many shows as you've done, you also have to have entertainment in this yourself to keep you engaged, some kind of thing that keeps you engaged. So and you're not going to be able to pull it off every time. I mean, I have my bad podcast days, and I just I send them to my editor and I go, I don't know what you can do with this.
Good luck. You have to, you can't be really tired or stressed, because you have to be right there. You have to be fully, in the conversation, and you're doing two things at once. You're listening, but you're also thinking ahead. Like, what else it's like this, what they used to say, it's a funny expression for therapy. I don't know if you've heard it before, but in my program, they used to talk about even hovering attention. So you're kind of like just hovering and like, okay, I'm in it, but I'm also a little bit ahead. You want to be a little bit ahead, but you don't want to be too far ahead. So like sometimes I'll take notes, like, just a word or something where I want to go, but sometimes you don't get there. So it's you're juggling a lot of stuff, and it takes a lot of attention. And I don't know how you do as many as you do a day. I would be.
It's a lot. If you hear any kind of clicking now, that would be my dog deciding that where he was laying is no longer comfortable. Yeah, there's that too. And I love the freedom in that also, because I used to be so, noise and well, now everybody works from home, and you know what?
That's right.
We gonna have some noise sometimes.
Yeah.
And if it happens on top of a word, that can't be edited. So
that's right.
It's much more relaxed. I do appreciate the fact that I'm much more relaxed about it, and listeners are much more relaxed about it too, because guess what? They're working from home too.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Well, I'm so glad. I mean, we could talk about so many things, but I'm so glad that you're on this network. Thank you to Frank King, the mental health comedian, for putting us together.
Boy, he sang your praises up and down. He said, "You got to contact Kristin. You got." I was like, "Okay, I'll contact Kristin." Yeah, and I just, I'm so glad I did. I think we have a lot of common, there's a lot of common ground, and I really appreciate that you provide a platform that's so important right now.
It is so freaking important. Just listeners know, these are not, some people are professional, radio hosts and what have you, but it's really comprised of just regular people that just want to do this, and they're spending their own time and their own funds to edit these shows to, so it is a little bit offensive when somebody comes on and they want to get a free marketing hour to talk about their book, and they have a set list of questions that a publicist gave you, and you can't veer off the mark. I love it when publicists come on just also and sit quietly, and then they say, "Oh, well, you can't ask that." I'm like, you know what? You need to not be on my show. But that's what I'm saying. This is about advocacy. What you're doing is about advocacy. This is helpful to people dealing with a generation that is getting more and more packed with people as we live longer.
Yeah.
Vital.
Yeah. And we have so much to give. That's sort of the secret here. Like, one of the secrets of aging well is to leave a legacy. And it's sort of the gift that keeps giving, but it makes us feel wonderful. So it's a double dip. I mean, me doing something good for others. We talked about kindness. Yes, that's lovely. People can say, oh, you're doing this. That's great. But it gives me a sense of meaning and purpose. And that's what happiness is about, especially as we're over 50 and we know it's not about getting a fancy car or
shaking your booty at a dance club
Yep, you got it.
I ain't shaking nothing with this plantar fasciitis.
I know. Good luck to both of us. The golf ball really helps in a really kind of like hurts so good kind of way.
Okay,
it's because it's crunchy. You got adhesions, and so you're breaking them up. So it's sort of like scratching an itch, except there's pain involved.
So it's like scratching a nasty mosquito bite.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Fantastic. Oh, well, Nicole, I'm so glad. If listeners, please look for her podcast on everywhere you can imagine. Whatever your favorite podcast app is, it's there. It's called Zestful Aging. And tell them where they can read your blog and find out more about you.
Oh, yeah, they can read. It's a monthly blog. It's called The Zest. And I talk about all kinds of stuff like little, behind the scenes secrets, humiliations, stuff like that. I like self-deprecating humor is one of my faves. I do talk about mindfulness, meditation, all that stuff, and general mental health kind of thing. And you can sign up on my website, zestfulaging.com. And I love feedback. I would love to hear the good, the bad, whatever. And I really want, I'm here to sort of serve my audience. So, tell me what you like, what you don't like. I'm very open to hearing all of your views.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. And listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Mental Health News Radio. Hi, listeners. I'll make it quick. These are some really cool places that give discounts and other cool things for listeners of Mental Health News Radio Network. If you want to get amazing help with healing from narcissistic abuse, go to healfromanarcissist.com. If you want CBD products that are the best of the best, I use them myself, go to proze.com and use the code mentalhealth20, mentalhealth20. If you want to get daily perk ups that help retrain your brain to think more positively, go to perkupdaily.com. And also, just because this one's fun, snarkycandles.com. I guarantee you'll love them. Snarky with a Y, SNARKY candles.com. And don't forget, if you want to hear all the shows on the network about first responders, you can go to firstrespondermentalhealthnetwork.com, and all of our shows that focus on narcissistic abuse, narcissistabusehealingnetwork.com. Thanks for listening, and back to the show.
But will you ride the low, low, lows with me? Will you ride the low, low, lows with me?
One thing you can always count on at Mental Health News Radio Network and my show is that there will always be dogs around. Why? They are natural healers, excellent for your mental health. The original therapy dog Miles has something to say in just a moment. For now, please check out all of our amazing shows at mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com and all your favorite podcast apps. Until next time, I'm Kristin Sonanta Walker, and thank you for listening.
And I can ride the low, low, lows with me. I can ride the low, low, lows with me. Till my vision clears up perfectly. I can ride the low, low, lows with me.
Good boy. All right, that was awesome.
That was so fun. I love when we can laugh.